You don't deserve to know what's inside. Jessica's voice crackled through my phone speaker, dripping with satisfaction. You're not even really part of this family anyway. I gripped my desk at the hospital where I worked as a pediatric nurse, trying to steady my racing heart. My name is Emma Sullivan, and at 28, I just discovered my sister-in-law had found and opened a letter from my birth mother. A letter I didn't even know existed until this moment. Where did you find it? I asked, keeping my voice level despite the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Jessica's laugh was sharp, cutting. In that old box of your adoptive mom's things, the one in the attic. I was helping organize and well, she paused for dramatic effect. Let's just say it's quite interesting. But since you're not actually a Sullivan, I don't think you have any right to this information. I closed my eyes, remembering Mom, my real mom, regardless of biology, who had passed away 6 months ago. The mom who had chosen me, loved me, raised me as her own. The fact that Jessica was going through her things made my blood boil. But I forced myself to remain calm. That box belongs to me, Jessica. Dad specifically said all Mom's personal items were mine to go through when I was ready. Oh please, she scoffed. You've had months. If you really cared about your precious mommy's things, you would have gone through them already. Besides, I'm married to your brother. Everything in his family is my business. I thought about my brother Mark, who was away on a military deployment. He'd never approved of Jessica's treatment of me. But being thousands of miles away, there wasn't much he could do. She'd gotten worse since Mom died, as if the last person who could keep her in check was gone. Just put everything back and leave it alone, I said firmly. Those are my private. Private? She cut me off. Like how your birth mother wanted to keep you private. Want to know what she wrote about you? My heart stopped. The letter. The one thing I both dreaded and longed for my entire life. Did I want to know? Mom and Dad had always been open about my adoption, had always made me feel chosen and loved. But there had always been questions, wondering. Don't, I whispered, but Jessica was already speaking, her words chosen specifically to wound. She didn't want you, Emma. Says so right here. Gave you up because you were a mistake, a burden. Guess some things never change, huh? I ended the call, my hands shaking. Through the window of my office, I could see the children's ward where I worked, where every day I helped sick kids feel safer, braver, more loved. The irony wasn't lost on me. That evening, instead of going home, I drove to my childhood house where Jessica and her 2 kids were living while Mark was deployed. Dad had moved to a smaller place after Mom died, letting them stay there to be closer to the kids' school. Another kindness Jessica had taken as her due. The lights were on, and I could see her moving around inside. My keys still worked in the lock. Dad hadn't changed them yet. When I walked in, Jessica was sitting at the kitchen table, Mom's old box open in front of her, papers scattered everywhere. Well, well, she said, not looking up. Come to beg for your precious letter. I looked at the chaos she created, at Mom's carefully preserved memories strewn about like trash. Photos, letters, the journal she kept during my adoption process, all of it exposed to Jessica's careless handling. Where is it? I asked quietly. She held up an envelope weathered with age. Right here. But like I said, you don't deserve to know what's inside. You're not a real Sullivan. Never have been, never will be. I walked to the table, my footsteps echoing in the kitchen where Mom had taught me to bake, where we'd shared countless conversations, where she held me when my first boyfriend broke my heart. This house held every important memory of my life, and Jessica was trying to taint them all. You know what's funny? I said, reaching for my phone. Mom never liked you. She told me so, right before she died. Jessica's face contorted with rage. You're lying. She loved me. No, I said, pulling up a recording app. She tolerated you for Mark's sake, but she saw right through you. She made me promise to protect Mark and the kids from you when the time came. Guess what, Jessica? The time just came. What are you talking about? Her voice had lost its edge, uncertainty creeping in. I pressed play on my phone. Jessica's earlier words filled the kitchen. I found the letter in that old box. I was helping organize. Her admission of going through my things, her cruel taunts about my birth mother, all of it captured perfectly. Breaking and entering, I said calmly. Theft of personal property. Emotional abuse of a family member. Want to know what the military thinks about dependents who behave this way while their service members are deployed? I hear they take it very seriously. The color drained from Jessica's face. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I held out my hand. The letter, and everything else you took from that box. Now. She shoved the envelope across the table, her hands trembling. It doesn't matter anyway. I already told you what it says. She didn't want you. I picked up the letter, still sealed in its envelope, and smiled. No, Jessica. You didn't read anything. The envelope hasn't been opened. Her face went from pale to red in an instant. You lied, just like you always do. But this time, I have proof. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack up every single thing you took from Mom's box. You're going to apologize, in writing, for violating my privacy. And you're going to start treating me with respect. Or these recordings go to Mark's commanding officer. Are we clear? She nodded, defeated for the first time since I'd known her. As I gathered Mom's things, carefully placing them back in her box, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The letter from my birth mother sat untouched in my bag. I'd read it when I was ready, on my own terms. For now, it was enough to know that Jessica's power over me was finally broken. I had proof of who she really was, and more importantly, I knew exactly who I was. Emma Sullivan, daughter of the woman who chose me, who loved me, who made me strong enough to stand up to bullies like Jessica. Biology didn't make a family, love did. And Jessica was about to learn exactly what happened when she messed with a real Sullivan. The next morning, my phone was flooded with messages from Jessica, a mix of apologies and threats, each more desperate than the last. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the letter in my hands. The paper felt delicate, aged by years of waiting. Mom had kept it safe all this time, probably waiting for the right moment to give it to me. I was sitting in my small apartment's kitchen, the morning light streaming through the windows, when Dad called. Emma, sweetheart, his voice was gentle, concerned. Jessica told me what happened. Are you okay? I traced the edges of the envelope. Did she tell you everything, Dad? About going through Mom's things? About lying about reading the letter? He sighed heavily. Yes, she did. I'm so sorry, honey. I should never have let her stay in the house. Your mother? He paused, his voice catching. Your mother always said Jessica needed firm boundaries. Mom was right about a lot of things, I said softly, thinking about all the times she tried to warn me about Jessica's manipulative behavior. Have you read the letter yet? Dad asked carefully. No, I admitted. I'm scared, Dad. What if Jessica was right? What if my birth mother really didn't want me? Emma Catherine Sullivan. Dad's voice grew firm, using my full name like he did when I was young and needed reassurance. You listen to me. That letter doesn't change who you are or who loves you. Your mother and I chose you. We wanted you more than anything in this world. Whatever that letter says, you're our daughter. Tears slid down my cheeks. I miss her so much, Dad. I wish she was here. I know, sweetheart. I miss her too. He cleared his throat. But you know what? She prepared for this moment. There's something else you need to see. Can you come over today? An hour later, I was sitting in Dad's new apartment, surrounded by boxes he still hadn't unpacked. He disappeared into his bedroom and returned with a small wooden chest I'd never seen before. Your mother left this for you, he said, placing it on a coffee table. She made me promise to give it to you when the birth mother letter came up. My hands shook as I opened the chest. Inside was a leather-bound journal, several envelopes, and a small velvet box. On top was a note in Mom's handwriting. For Emma, when you're ready to know everything. I opened the journal first. It was Mom's adoption diary, starting from the day they decided to adopt. February 15, 1995. I read aloud, my voice trembling. Today we met our daughter for the first time. She's perfect, absolutely perfect. The moment they placed her in my arms, I knew this was the child I was meant to mother. Dad sat quietly as I read entry after entry, documenting every milestone, every moment of joy, every challenge. Mom had written about her fears, her hopes, her overwhelming love for me. She kept letters I'd written her as a child, drawings I'd made, photos of us together. Then I found another sealed envelope newer than the birth mother letter. It was addressed to me in Mom's handwriting, dated just weeks before she passed away. My dearest Emma, it began. If you're reading this, then you found the letter from your birth mother. I've kept it safe all these years, waiting for the right moment. But more importantly, I've kept the truth safe. My heart stopped as I continued reading. Your birth mother's name is Sarah Mitchell. She was 18 when she had you, scared and alone. But she didn't give you up because you were unwanted. She gave you up because she wanted you to have everything she couldn't provide. I know this because I've been in contact with her for the past 5 years. Dad leaned forward, surprised. Catherine never told me about this. My hands were shaking as I read on. Sarah reached out to me through the adoption agency when you turned 23. She wanted to know if you were happy, healthy, loved. I shared photos, stories, told her about your dream of becoming a nurse. She was so proud, Emma. So proud of the woman you've become. She never stopped loving you. She just loved you enough to give you the life she couldn't provide. Tears blurred my vision as I reached the end of Mom's letter. I kept this from you not out of malice, but because I wanted you to be ready. Sarah respects your life, your family, and has never wanted to disrupt that. But she did want you to know the truth when you were ready. In the velvet box, you'll find her current contact information if you choose to use it. Whatever you decide, know this. You are loved, Emma. By your birth mother, by your father, and most of all, by me. Being your mother has been the greatest joy of my life. I opened the velvet box with trembling fingers. Inside was a small card with a phone number and email address, along with a delicate silver locket. When I opened it, I found a tiny photo of a young woman holding a baby, my birth mother holding me. Dad, I whispered, did you know about any of this? He shook his head, wiping his own tears. Your mother was always protecting everyone, even after. He trailed off, overcome with emotion. My phone buzzed, another message from Jessica. But this time, when I read it, I felt only pity. She tried to use my adoption to hurt me, never knowing that Mom had already prepared the perfect defense, proof of how deeply I was loved by both my mothers. I thought about Mark, serving overseas, unaware of how his wife had tried to destroy his sister. I thought about Mom, so wise in her preparation, so loving in her protection. I thought about my birth mother, Sarah, who had loved me enough to give me a better life. And I thought about Jessica, whose attempts to prove I didn't belong had only served to show me exactly how much I did. Dad, I said, clutching Mom's journal to my chest, I think it's time we had a family meeting, a real one. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'll call Mark's commanding officer. This needs to be handled properly. As I helped Dad pack up the chest of memories, I felt stronger than ever. Jessica had tried to use my adoption to exclude me, but she never understood what Mom had always known. That family isn't about blood or birth certificates. It's about love, choice, and protection. And I had 3 parents who had loved me, chosen me, and protected me. Jessica never stood a chance. The family meeting took place via video call a week later. Mark's commanding officer had arranged for him to participate from his base overseas, his face serious on the computer screen as he listened to the recordings of Jessica's behavior. Dad sat beside me, his hand steady on my shoulder, while Jessica perched nervously on the edge of her chair in the corner. Let me get this straight, Mark said, his voice tight with controlled anger. You broke into Emma's private property, lied about reading a deeply personal letter, and then tried to use her adoption to emotionally manipulate her. Jessica's makeup couldn't hide her pallor. Mark, honey, I was just trying to protect our family. Protect our family? Mark's voice rose. Emma is our family. She's my sister. Those are her mother's belongings you violated. And there's more, I said quietly, opening Mom's journal. Mom left something for everyone to see. I read Catherine's final entry aloud, her words filling the room with their power. My dearest family, if these words are being read, then Jessica has finally shown her true colors. I've watched her subtle cruelty toward Emma for years, seen how she tries to separate our family. Mark, my son, I love you, but your wife has caused more pain than you know. Emma has stayed silent to protect your happiness, but it's time for the truth. Jessica's face crumpled as I continued reading. Mom had documented everything. Every snide comment, every exclusion, every attempt to drive a wedge between us. She kept a record, knowing this day would come. I'm requesting immediate family care plan review, Mark announced, his military training evident in his decisive tone. Jessica, you'll be moving out of my parents' house within the week. My children will stay with Dad until I return. You can't do this, Jessica protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Actually, he can, Dad interjected. The house is in my name, and I want you out. As Jessica fled the room in tears, I turned to the final task. With trembling fingers, I finally opened the letter from my birth mother, Sarah. Mark and Dad waited quietly as I read. My precious daughter, I've dreamed of writing this letter for years. First, you should know that giving you up was the hardest and most loving choice I've ever made. I was young, alone, and wanted you to have the life you deserved. Your mother, Catherine, has shared so much about the wonderful woman you've become. A nurse, helping children. My heart couldn't be more full of pride. The letter went on, full of love, explanation, and hope. Sarah had included her medical history, family background, and current contact information. Everything she thought I might want to know. You don't have to do anything with this information, Mark said gently. It's your choice. I looked at the phone number at the bottom of the letter, then at the family surrounding me, my father who had chosen me, my brother who defended me, and the spirit of my mother who had protected me even after she was gone. Actually, I smiled. I think Mom would want me to make the call. 2 months later, I sat in a quiet cafe, waiting. The bell above the door chimed, and a woman walked in, older than the photo in the locket, but with the same kind eyes. Sarah Mitchell, my birth mother, had agreed to meet. Emma, she breathed, stopping at my table. You look so much like you, I finished, standing to greet her. I know, Mom, Catherine, she kept photos. We talked for hours, filling in the gaps of our shared story. Sarah had gone on to become a teacher, had married, had 2 other children. She'd never forgotten me, but had respected Catherine's wish to wait until I was ready. Your mother was an amazing woman, Sarah said, holding the locket I brought to show her. She wrote to me every year, sending pictures, updates. She loved you so completely. I had 2 mothers loving me all this time, I replied, even if I only knew one of them. When I returned home that evening, Dad and Mark were waiting. Jessica had moved out, was staying with her parents while she and Mark began divorce proceedings. The kids were adjusting, happy to be with their grandfather and aunt. How did it go? Dad asked, pulling me into a hug. It was perfect, I said, just like Mom would have wanted. Mark grinned. Speaking of Mom, wait until you see what we found in the attic today. They led me upstairs to where Mom's box sat. But now there were 3 more beside it, each labeled with my name. More journals, more letters, more pieces of the mother who had known exactly what I would need even after she was gone. Mom knew, I said softly, opening the first box. She knew I'd need all of this someday. She did, Dad agreed. She knew you'd need proof of how loved you were, how wanted, how cherished, by all of us. As I sat there, surrounded by my family and the legacy of a mother's love, I realized that Jessica's cruelty had led me to exactly where I needed to be. She had tried to use my adoption to prove I didn't belong, but instead, she had revealed just how deeply rooted my place in this family truly was. I belonged, not because of blood or birth, but because of love. And that, as Mom had always known, was the strongest connection of all.